Welcome everybody. We are back for some Kagurabachi deep dives. This one is actually going to be a double header. We're going to be doing chapter 100 and 101. Um, Obviously a bit late for chapter 100, but heading into this time of the year, going into the holidays, this is the busiest season of my day job. So unfortunately, it's going to result in somewhat irregular posting schedule, because as much as I would absolutely love to be making videos full time, that's just not a possibility right now. I'm married, have a son, and life and adult responsibilities. So, enough about my personal life. That's not why you guys are here. You guys are here for these amazing Kagurabachi chapters. So I'm just going to dive right into it. If you are here specifically for chapter 101, I will have a timestamp down below that will take you directly to 101. But we're going to start with chapter 100. The chapter opens up again with Yura atop the stone structure in the lowest level of the Kaminabi headquarters. The dungeon, as it is so aptly named, for the swordmaster that is down below. And Yura is actually able to sense the swordmaster deep below, saying, "You're far away, but you can hear me thanks to the Shinichi." And we get an amazing turn page here, or page turn, because the next page we get is a double page spread of the Swordmaster, finally getting a name reveal and the official title for the Shinichi. We have heard him call it that all the way back during the Rakuzaichi when Kyora wielded the Shinichi, but it is the Magatsumi. The Magatsumi is the official name of the Shinichi, because we know Shinichi is just like a masterwork. It's like a title for the masterpiece of Rokuhira's legacy, the strongest enchanted blade that he has, but the actual blade name is Magatsumi. Because like I said, when Kyora first wielded the Shinichi during the Rakuzaichi, when we saw the sword master, he actually says Magatsumi, and that's when you first get that drip of spirit energy that then blooms the flowers and allows him to start wielding the power of the blade. And this is where we also get his name, which is Akimura Soga. So that, and it's an incredible panel. I mean, he's just sitting up on top of that ruined building that we saw in the quick little flashback when we saw the previous 5 sword bearers basically teamed up against him, and he's like up on top of that building. He's just like sitting up there, and the Magatsumi itself is just like floating in front of him. It is an incredible panel. Hokuzono definitely knows how to portray menace and aura, and I'm just absolutely here for it. But we continue on, and it kind of gives us some more information regarding the Swordmaster, and just saying that he's the man who wielded the strongest enchanted blade and unleashed the malediction, annihilating the 200 lives of the residents on the island of Shikoku. And afterwards, he was contained by the other 5 enchanted blade users, and he was imprisoned in this dungeon. However, because they had to do it like so quickly, there was actually no time to conduct a formal like psychological evaluation on Akimura. I don't know if it's Akimura or Soga. I'm going to go with Akimura when I refer to him. Maybe it'll be the Swordmaster sometimes too, but I'm going to go with Akimura here. And they couldn't do a psych eval on him because, well, he probably was unstable and they needed to hurry up and imprison him because just of how much power he was able to wield. And the diagnosis, like any diagnosis that they were able to make on his mental health, was purely conjecture. So they don't have all the information, and they're basically making just an assumption on what they would believe to be true. And this is where we actually have who I believe it's a panel of a guy with like the broom looking mustache. And my thought is it's actually the one sword bearer, the like sushi. He looks like a sushi dude. So I don't think we have a name for him, but to me, it looks like him, but I could be totally wrong. This could be like a total, like a random Kamunabi person, maybe one of the doctors, who knows? But it says faced with masses of corpses and subsumed, basically taken over by the Shinichi's powers, he devolved into a severely deranged state. And this is where it gives us a little bit of lore into the power system. Um, and this goes for a lot of like anime and manga power systems because it says that insanity can sometimes drastically heighten a sorcerer's abilities. The tremendous scale and power of the malediction made this theory compelling. Basically, because the malediction was so vast and so powerful and on a scale that they'd never seen before, their assumption was that his insanity actually led to him accessing a higher level of sorcery with the Magatsumi, because it shows in that panel Hagiwara, which we know he's basically in a state of mental insanity because he's animating his dead best friend through his sorcery. But by doing so, he was able to use sorcery on a scale which we did not see him use prior, and actually has leveled him up to a much higher degree in sorcery because of his mental state being unstable. So it can actually result in a very drastic increase, but with no further proof in regards to Akimura, the swordmaster. They had no definitive proof, so they locked him away under heavy confinement so that he would avoid any further stimulation. And he would be only monitored by his external behavior ever since. And it says, and now after 18 years of silence, he has been sitting literally in that basically a state of suspended animation where he doesn't need to eat, doesn't have to go to the bathroom, nothing. He just is existing. It keeps him alive, but he can't, well, he wasn't supposed to be able to move, but he was just sitting there for basically 18 years with no contact with humans whatsoever in this dungeon. And this is now his first human contact is with Yura. And the swordmaster, Yura's like, hey, at last we meet. Like, I've come to kill you. And this is where we see the swordmaster just kind of like sit up, and the dude starts stretching. He starts stretching just casually. He's not even supposed to be able to move in this place at all. He just gets up, and now he's stretching. And in anime and manga, whenever somebody just starts like, that someone that you know is powerful and they just like hop up and start kind of like stretching, like, ooh, yeah, like getting their body, into it and warmed up, it's usually not a good sign, at least when it's a villain. It reminds me of in the second episode or very early chapters of Jujutsu Kaisen with Gojo, when he wants to fight Sukuna for like the 10 seconds, and he just like, he stretches. He's like, all right, yeah, just like let him out for 10 seconds, and he stretches, and then he goes on to just like stunt on Sukuna for that 10 seconds. Obviously, severely weakened Sukuna, only one finger, but regardless, it's not a JJK video, but it's just the stretching. It just reminded me of it because I love seeing that. It just usually means that character is about to unleash some, well, let's just say some ish. But he basically ignores Yura saying that he's came to kill him. And he's like, I haven't spoken to anyone in a long time. Like, is it cold out there? He's just asking questions about basically the weather. And Yura doesn't even respond. He doesn't even know what to say. And the Swordmaster Akimura is like, what's the matter? And Yura instantly is like, well, all the scholars say that you're insane. So clearly he was not anticipating a very normal response or conversation coming back from the Swordmaster. So this obviously threw him off. And the Swordmaster even kind of like snorts and chuckles here. But he goes on willingly to just say that slaughtering hundreds of thousands and going, and he just says like, oh, slaughtering hundreds of thousands and going insane, wouldn't that be convenient? Because that's a very easily explainable situation. Like, oh, he basically, the power of the blade was so much for him that it overtook him, drove him insane, and that's what resulted in this absolute atrocity that took so many lives. And he's just saying that it would be convenient, but he's like, let's just get one thing straight right off the bat. He's like, I chose willingly, based on my beliefs and ideas, to eradicate all those people, to protect this country and its people. Just flat out. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. He still, after 18 years, is saying, I did it. And the reason I did it was not because of insanity, but my beliefs and my ideas. And I believe them so strongly that I did it also to protect this country and its people, which is what the enchanted blades were originally created for. And Yura's just like, he's saying this so matter-of-factly, and he's just like astonishing. So, and then he elaborates further the fact that he's able to sense Akimura's surroundings very faintly, but after 18 years of like being in this concealed vacuum, that he's still, the Swordmaster, still self-aware and he's lucid, and that any other person would have definitely lost their mind, which I completely agree. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. Most people nowadays, like just thinking about this logistically, most people nowadays can't even sit like in a room by themselves for longer than like 5 minutes. And that might be being generous. This dude has been sitting there for 18 years with no stimulus whatsoever. It's not even like he has like a pretty view. No, it's just a dungeon, a dark cellar. And he is still totally with it, which mental fortitude wise, this dude has it in absolute spades. That's insane. And Yura goes on to say that above all, to think he unleashed a malediction of that magnitude in a normal state of mind. So that's where this gets really scary. Is earlier just was talking about that insanity can lead to an exponential growth in sorcery. And they just assumed, since the malediction was at that size, that of course this guy was insane. And that's why his power was so great. But he's saying that he accomplished that level of feat with a completely normal state of mind, which just goes to speak, one, for the level, the power of the Magatsumi, the blade itself, but it speaks even higher, I think, of Akimura, and presumably why he was chosen for the blade by Rokuhira. Now, obviously, not being able to tell the future to know what he was going to do, but he clearly was a master of the blade, master of sorcery, and a master of mental fortitude. And I'm just like, it's just insane to me. But Yura continues to go on saying, did you also intentionally stop encroaching into my body? Because we know, being the contracted bearer of the Magatsumi, anyone who tries to wield its excess power ultimately gets invaded, their mind gets invaded by him, and like they lose themselves. Now we know Kyora, when he used it, wasn't even able to use like a fraction of the power, still impressive, but ultimately never lost himself to it. And when Yura first started using the Magatsumi's powers just a few chapters ago, he was even like, oh my gosh, this is unbearable when he was using it. So that means that Akimura had stopped on purpose, didn't continue to encroach on Yura's mental state and try to take him over. Because he's like, yeah, I did. Like, I wanted to hear a bit about the outside world, and I haven't conversed with anyone in a long time. So I want to keep an appropriate level of distance as we talk. You know, you're up there, I'm down here. So this dude literally just out of the want to converse stopped. He was like, I'll let you kind of like just keep running wild, just so that I can get some communication out of you. And he continues and goes on to ask that, he says, is my brother Kunishige Rokuhira dead? And his choice of words here, saying brother, really does indicate the relationship that they had with each other. Because we obviously know that Rokuhira, Shiba, and Azumi were like buds. They were like great friends. But it seems to me that his relationship with Akimura Soga was on the level of being a brother, like that, the tightest bond that you can imagine. And Yura just flat out answers, yes, I led the plot to kill him. And Akimura just says, you know, I figured that was the case when the enchanted blades started, you know, moving all of a sudden, that there had to be some sort of, you know, catalyst to it. And most likely was the death of Rokuhira. And he's like, now I take it like you're coming to kill me, right? And this is where Yura says yes. But then he was like, that was the plan, was past tense. And then you see the flowers start to sprout up next to him, and it actually summons the Magatsumi through the flower. So it took it out of its seal from the other area of the Kaminabi and brought the blade to him, which it's so simple, but the panel of it literally hit the handle coming out of the flower. I don't know why, but it is so satisfying to see that. It's a beautiful panel, and I think it's just a really sick way to like summon your weapon, your blade. But and it's a great shot of Yura just like grabbing it. And he says that he's come to correct the mistake of these so-called heroes. He goes on to say that he approves of the malediction. That day, he saw the right answer, whatever that means, because in this kind of just like piques my interest, because now knowing that the swordmaster, now knowing Akimura is not insane, and he said he did the malediction ultimately to save the country of Japan and its people, and he did so like with full belief in his ideas, that there must have been some sort of decision outside it. Because I know that we've been told like there was a peace treaty that was being signed and like everything was going to be cool and chill, but there might be something on the surface or something under the surface that we are not privy to yet. We're purposely being withheld this information. And I mean, I think that goes for the whole Shikoku invasion war, like the Seitei War. I think we just need more. And I think it's going to be something that we get piecemeal over time, because a lot of everything that has fallen out basically since our story began with Chihiro, it's all been just consequences of the Seitei War that we're dealing with. So we just need more information on it. And Yura continues to go on saying that the enchanted blades should be the solution to bring order to the world. But Kunishige Rokuhiro rejected the malediction and sealed the enchanted blades away after the war was complete, instead of allowing them to continue to be used to bring order. He, after witnessing the malediction, was like, all right, the war is over. The threat is now gone. These things, they need to be put away. The nukes need to be sealed away. So he did. But Yura says that it was a tremendous mistake. And this is where we actually get to see our group of Hagiwara, Kiri, and Hakari. And they're seeing all the guys laid out with like the flowers blooming out of them that I had presumed just instantly died. But they didn't. I mean, he's not doing good at all. He's coughing up blood and he seems to be in excruciating pain. But Hakari remembers the mobsters from the Rakuzaichi and how the flowers like basically immediately killed them. And he was saying that the guys at the Rakuzaichi were just ordinary gangsters. So he's seeing that sorcerers can actually withstand just the, I guess, I don't even know what to call it. It's because it's not a named move. It just seems to be something that is a consequence of the spirit energy of the Magatsumi, where these flowers bloom out of people and consume presumably their life energy, maybe their spirit energy, and that, you know, leads to the flower blooming and doing more internal damage. I don't know. But apparently sorcerers can actually at least withstand it happening, whereas ordinary people is just going to outright done, kill them. And, you know, he thinks back on, then we actually get to see Natsuki and Uraha. Both of them have flowers blooming out of them, but both of them are actually alive. And they seem to be fighting against the power of the Magatsumi to, you know, continue living. But we come back to Yura, and he continues on saying that if the sword bearer is insane, the power would be in dangerous hands. Like someone else should wield the sword instead. The world needs a bit more order. I figured someone needed to take on that role, referring to himself, saying, we need someone who can take back control, who's not insane. If the Swordmaster was, like, he's not a viable option. So we need to get rid of him so that I, so that I can take on that role of the, you know, person to bring order with the swords. But now he says that he's learning that you unleash the malediction with clarity and intention. And he just says that you and I can understand each other. And all Akimura says after that, all of that, is he just says, who are you? And Yura responds with, let's lead with the enchanted blades correctly together. Which honestly, like, this was something going through this invasion arc that I was just very, not confused, but I just didn't really know where it was going, because, you know, Yura being the leader of the Hishaku, which has been the main villain group for Chihiro and the Kamunabi, it would set him up as the leader to be, you know, the final villain. But we always had the looming overarching threat of the Swordmaster. But Yura's intentions were to wield the Shinuchi, so it was always conflicting with, well, only one of them can be alive to fully wield the blade. So one of them has to go. But now Yura is actually changing his tune. And after conversing with the Swordmaster, he's declaring that Akimura and himself can actually work together. So that may actually mean either they share the power somehow, or Akimura gets the Magatsumi back and then Yura uses one of the other enchanted blades that they have in their possession. So it's not the same thing, but he would still be wielding, one of the most powerful weapons in the series, which would then make the Hishaku just all the more terrifying because it took 5 masters to contain Akimura himself. So it's not looking great for the good guys. But this is where we actually see Azumi with flowers spouting out of his body, but he's got the big crazy eyes. This dude is just walking in. He's got his coins activated, so he's boosting his physical stats with his coins. And all Yura just says is, "You friggin' demon. Like, you're just a demon." And I absolutely agree. He's missing his left arm. He has clearly taken significant damage, and he has the effects of those flowers going on him, but yet he is still walking and coming for him. And he's just like, "That's right." And he instantly tries to go after Yura, but Yura, with the power of the Magatsumi, he's on top of him. And Azumi's wounded right now, and he hits him with a dragonfly that blasts his right arm clean off. So now he has no arms, and he just says, "You're a walking corpse." But before he can even finish saying that, Azumi has rotated and is going for a heel kick right to Yura's face. Just absolutely pushing through an insane scenario. And he's just thinking to himself, might as well become a demon. And this is where we cut to seeing a young Chihiro, presumably before. Actually, I can't tell if he has a scar or not, but it's a young Chihiro who's looks to be in the shop. And we have Azumi and both Shiba there with him. And then we cut, it's just like a little flashback, and then we actually cut to the final page, and it says, on a sign, it says, Subaru. And we see Shiba, he seems to be at what appears to be a sushi restaurant, because he's sitting up at the bar, and he has a phone next to him. And this is where earlier in the chapter, when we saw the broom mustache, that I assumed that it was one of the other sword bearers, the sushi chef looking dude, is because we know that both Hiyuki and Shiba went to the 2 remaining sword bearers, their Sanso, and to protect them, because they assumed that they were going to go after the rest of the sword bearers, but then they ended up attacking headquarters instead. So Shiba is here with presumably that sword bearer, but he has a phone that is connected back to the Kamunabi just in case, anything happens. But that is where chapter 100 ends. It's a crazy, cutoff point here, but it just sets up for, chapter 101. And I'm not really going to waste any time here. I'm just going to flow right into the next one for you guys. So 101, chapter 101 opens up, and we pick right back where we just left off with Azumi and Yura. And Yura actually had blocked Azumi's kick that was going to his face with the Magatsumi. And he kicks Azumi away, and before Azumi he kind of catches himself on his feet, but before he can even react, Yura has the handle right under Azumi's chin, and then instantly we see the flowers with the roots start to, embed itself directly into Azumi. And this seems to resonate with all of the sorcerers that have been afflicted by the flowers, because they all start kind of screaming, wiggling, like, looking terrible, because I'm assuming they're growing thicker and bigger and, burrowing further into them, which seems absolutely horrendous. But this is where we talk more on the vessels in the scenario with the force field, because it says with one vessel, normally they're operating the force field, but now that there's a second, they won't be able to tamper with the settings of the force field. And so it is repelling the enchanted blades, which we know because we're trying to get Chihiro and Samura inside so they can help with Yura, the problem here. But having two vessels also is causing an electromagnetic disturbance that is blocking their phones. So they're totally isolated from the outside world, and that the phone part is actually just a byproduct of having two vessels. And their reinforcements and their enchanted blades can't reach us unless they kill the second vessel, which was the whole point of trying to get to the second vessel here. We see him still running nearby, literally just casually holding his head in his hand, which is ridiculous, but he's still going. And this is Hagiwara. He's doing still like the scan, the MRI, but he's saying that nobody has the capacity to figure out the trick, the trick behind his sorcery or his seeming immortality, which clearly has to have some sort of gimmick. My guess is some sort of core that he can move around, and as long as that is not destroyed, he can always basically sustain his life. But this is where we get to see the Kamunabi's vessel say that he talks to Master Izuru and says at this point there's only one option left, and that is to kill him. Got to kill him. And because he says that if he dies, the force field will transfer completely to the second vessel, and its ability to repulse the enchanted blades will become even stronger because now there isn't a force trying to counteract it with a second one. But the force field will stabilize, so the electromagnetic effect will go away, so then they can get their communications to the outside back up, which means they can call in all the reinforcements who don't have enchanted blades. And it specifically shows Hiyuki and Shiba here, which they need them. They absolutely need them. So at this time, he's saying that if he dies, everyone will be saved. And he's just thinking, well, that sucks, because he took on this job for one reason, and it was money, for a boatload of money that would take care of him for the rest of his life. Now, in the interview process, as you know, people do, you fib, you lie, you say you have lofty goals. So he says he wants to build a better world and devote his life to his nation. But he just says that, he wanted to get paid. He doesn't have to risk his life because he's deep within the safest place in the entire country, and he just has to sit there for 2 more years, and when his term's over, he'll be swimming in cash. And I can't fault the dude. That's very sound logic. You had to go through some terrible stuff to become the vessel after intaking the scroll, but hey, a fully secured financial life after that term of service, I can see why somebody would want to do it. And Izuru is just like, are you sure? But the guy's like, hey, just send the money to my parents, which goes to show that even though his intentions for why he did this, to get the money, when it came down to this scenario where basically everyone's lives are at stake in the country, he is willing to put aside his own personal desires for the betterment of others. So that goes out the window. So it shows he's actually a very courageous and honorable person. And he even says, like, hey, send the money to my parents. So he wants to take care of somebody with that money that he so, greatly desired. And he says at least he can go down with his head held high. And Izuru says, admirable, and he goes to attack him. But then this is where we see Hokuto just show up behind him, which, all the way back chapters ago, before Yura had activated the powers of the Magatsumi, Hokuto had said, like, it's time to get to work. And to me, I was like, oh, does that mean he's going to like lock in, to his fight? But no, that must have meant he was going here to specifically prevent them from coming up with a solution for bringing in reinforcements, because he immediately attacks Izuru. We don't see, we see them like his sorcery clash with Hokuto's blade, but we don't, then they go flying. We don't actually see anything further, but the vessel is just like, dang, man. But we see that Hagiwara is paying attention with his MRI ability, which is insane. He is literally scanning the entire facility of the Kaminami headquarters, and he's just like watching all this stuff going on. And he's relaying basically what has to happen. And because then Hakuri's like, wait, like kill one of our own people, like kill one of the Kaminami members. And Hagiwara's like, they got to try to relinquish the barrier. He's trying to relinquish the barrier to the second vessel so that they can get their communications back up. And if they get rid of him, they can get the communications up. So he immediately asks Hakuri, like, hey, that katana summoning thing that you did back there, like, can you send one to where I'm pointing, about 140 meters that way, which is insane accuracy on his part, because he himself cannot use Kugara, his sorcery, to go barrel through the whole place and kill the dude, because right now his energy levels are totally depleted. And so he's like, well, if you can send it close to him, I can use my if you can send a sword close to him, I can use my magnetism to like send it the rest of the way and take him out. And Hakuri's like, wait, but like he's like, dude, I don't want to be a part of, killing one of our own members. Like, I'm not down for that. And Hagiwara's like, one person's sacrifice could save everyone. And that is it's such a hard decision. I mean, it's just like the trolley moral dilemma, trying like, do you switch the tracks to, you got 5 people in one track, 1 on the other, like, and you got a switch that'll allow you to switch to the other track. So, willingly, intentionally take out the 1 to save the 5, or let the 5 go and you choose not to interfere. That's basically what Hakuri's having to face here, is like, do you help to take out the one guy on your own side that will ultimately lead to higher chances of success for the good guys and your country? Or do you, you don't want to be a part of, don't want to be a part of taking out one of your own guys? And, that's an extremely hard scenario. But Hagiwara's like, think about the opposite, which imagine the hell of surviving while everyone else dies, which extremely compelling. I will give him that. That is, it's a compelling argument. But Hakuri then activates, we see his mask come on his face. So he's activating his power of his storehouse. And we see the bubbling pop up next to our vessel. And then the vessel is gone. The next panel, he's just vanished. And we get to see Izuru and Hokuto. They're just outside of the little pergola thing. And then we see Hakuri just like, huh? And he's in the water, but the other dude's gone. And everyone's like, where'd he go? And Hakuri's like, I have no idea, which is ridiculous because he's the one who's supposed to know what's going on, but he doesn't. And we then get to see the vessel guy is inside of Hakuri's storehouse. And he's like, where am I? And basically what happened is that the gist of it is that this dude just needs to be gone from this space. So by Hakuri sending him to the storehouse, it actually removes him as a vessel from the headquarters. So it does the same effect as him being deceased. So it actually saved this dude's life while also keeping the benefits of if he were gone, if he were dead. So Hakuri clutched right here for this dude and everybody. So this actually allows, we then see the phone that we saw at the end of last chapter. But then we're seeing Azumi like just covered in flowers, blood gushing out of his nose. It looks really, really bad. Can't lie. I don't know if Azumi is going to make it past this point. I mean, he's an absolute champ. He is just, he's helped stall Yura, especially up to this point. Anyone else most likely would not be moving, functioning. Most likely they would already be dead. But this dude has still kept it trucking. He's going against the strongest enchanted blade. And I just got to give the man his flowers. He really, just showed us who he was, what he stands for. And, I love Azumi. He's sweet. But he's like, took you long enough. And this is where we just see casually Shiba just, boom, show up right behind Yura. Just the absolute teleport master. And Shiba has so much aura. He just moves in that manner that you're just like, dude, this guy's just got it. He's just got it like that. Yura's even gassed Shiba up, and we haven't seen Shiba actually like try at all yet. And immediately Shiba's like, well, the enchanted blades can't get in. Yura sees him, but before he could even do anything, Shiba teleports to the other side of him, just grabs Yura's tie and is just like, let's go outside. Like, let's step outside. Boom. Instantly teleports him outside of the Kaminabi headquarters, meaning outside of the barrier, up into the sky. And he just says, take it from here. And just teleports away again. This dude just shows up and is just pew, 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 just teleporting people around. He's like, yeah, you guys got it from here. And I got to give it to him, though. Pretty much unfazed, looking absolutely menacing, just floating up in the air with the centipede spirit energy circulating around him. And we get an awesome close-up shot of Yura's hand with the Hishaku symbol and the Magatsumi in his hands. And then we see a terrible panel of Azumi laid out on the ground, just bleeding, no arms. And he's thinking on his conversation with Chihiro in the shop. And that's where we saw somewhat of the flashback last chapter, because he's thinking on his words to Chihiro, and because he said that as the Kamunabi, we can't allow the seventh enchanted blade to be let on loose just for your revenge, thinking this is a child, a young kid who just wants to take revenge for his father, and we can't have that sort of power just being used haphazardly to satiate your need for revenge. And Chihiro responds with revenge, like a question. And he says, no, I just want... And then we see a panel of Yura looking down. We have two figures there. And then we get to see a close-up of a gloved hand with the N10 and the little, water bubbles starting to come out. And it continues with Chihiro's answer to Azumi, saying, I just want to fight together for what my dad believed in. Meaning the blades need to be used for its proper purposes. And then we get the next page, the final page of the chapter. Absolutely gorgeous double page spread of Chihiro and Samura, both with their spirit energy. We have Chihiro with the giant black goldfish. He's got his jacket flapping in the wind. And then we've got Samura with, you can see his eyes, because he's healed himself with Suzaku after his fight with Chihiro. He's got the glasses, and he's got the crow wings, feathers coming off of him, looking like a wing. And they're ready to tag team against Yura with the Magatsumi. And this is where the chapter ends. And I'm just, oh, I don't know if I'm so excited, but I'm also not fully prepared for what is about to happen. This fight, if it really happens and we just go for it, and he doesn't like play around with, putting some handicaps on people, and we just get a true 2v1 right here, it's going to be insane. It's going to be absolutely insane. There's a good chance that the Swordmaster, Akimura, may allow Yura to wield the Magatsumi even more, meaning actually be able to unsheath it and use some of its capabilities, because we already know he willingly stopped encroaching upon him. So he may give him, and especially after their conversation, he may give him some more free reign with the Magatsumi, which is very scary. It is very scary. Even though we have Samura here, who is 100% a greater master of the sword compared to Yura, and fully mastered the Tobimune, which I don't even think which we still have not even seen Samura going all out. Because even in his fight against Chihiro, he did not. We saw him get a little serious. That's when he clapped Hirohiko, and then he was having basically an ideological battle against Chihiro. Not taking anything away from Chihiro, he did fantastic. But if Samura truly wanted to, he could have taken Chihiro out way earlier in their battle. So we haven't seen, at least I don't believe, what Samura is truly capable of. But I think now here is the perfect stage to do so. And like I said, I'm super excited, but there's also a part of me that is worried. I would be a liar if I said I was not. It just feels to me that this is going to be Samura's final fight in the series. I just don't see him living the entire series. And this would be kind of like the crescendo, like he would be going out on an absolute high, because it's gonna, if Yura is able to unsheath this blade and actually use a fair amount of the Magatsumi's powers, it's gonna be dangerous, even for Samura, who I have as currently potentially the strongest person in the series. If we're excluding, I consider Akimura the Swordmaster. I consider him inactive right now, because he's not free yet, and he does not have the Magatsumi in his possession. So I'm not counting him. So I would have Samura probably. He's currently the only person wielding a enchanted blade that he is contracted to it, and he already has mastered it. And we know he even took it even higher when it comes to his true realm with the increased in ability of Suzaku. So, but the Magatsumi has just been stated to us over and over again to have absurd powers. So I know I'm just blabbing on and on and on, but I have some death flags for Samura, because there's also a part of me that maybe believes Iori's future in this story is joining Chihiro and Hakuri, like their the young kids group that have daddy issues, basically. And she would take over the Tobimune for Samura. That's just like my own headcanon theory here. You guys let me know down below. I'm going to cut myself off because I feel like I can just keep rambling and rambling and rambling. Kagurabachi is absolutely gas right now. It's just on fire everywhere. So Hokuzono snapping, I love, like, his art has been phenomenal. I hope he, even though we've just passed 100, hopefully he gets some more breaks. But regardless of that, if anybody makes it to this point in the video, I greatly, greatly appreciate you. You guys are real ones. And, you know, if you enjoyed the videos, please feel free to subscribe. I'm going to be doing my best to pump out what I can during the holidays. And then hopefully after the holidays, you know, work kind of chills and I can really, really, really dig in and just pump out as much content as I can. But regardless, appreciate you all, and I will catch you guys in the next Kagurabachi deep dive. So, peace out.